So today is Wednesday, and typically on Wednesdays, at least one time a week, sometimes we do 2 times a week, we actually bring one of our clients on. We do a different person every single week, week on week on week. Sometimes we'll bring 2 clients a week on, and we basically interview that person and find out, like, how did you use our training, NEPQ, working with human behavior, changing your sales process to get massive results? Like, how did you go from, X amount of dollars you were making in commissions to learning NPQ, tying it into what you sell, and like doubling, tripling, quadrupling your income and your sales? Okay. So we've got a special guest on here today. It's actually one of our clients that lives, like, I just found out, 3 miles away from my house, which is kind of crazy. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. And what we're also going to do is we're going to break down his sales process. Like, what did we train him on that he needed to tweak and change in his sales process that resulted Darren here that was already doing well? I mean, the guy was already making 12 grand a month in commissions. For most salespeople, that's their dream. Okay. But Darren didn't want to just stay at 12 grand a month because, inflation, things start to cost more. You got to make more, right? So Darren was like, hey, how do I double that? How do I triple that? And that's what we've been able to help him do. Like, we've literally helped thousands of clients do at this point. So welcome to that. Darren, how are you, man? How's Springfield, Missouri?
Doing good, Jeremy. How are you? It's nice and sunny outside for once.
I'm here in my office. I'm just looking out. It's actually sunny. I think it's rained like 23 days straight.
Yeah, it's been crazy. No golf weather for sure. So.
I know. I live on Highland Springs Country Club golf course here on the 16th hole. We have a very large client here in Springfield, Missouri called Preferred Healthcare. It's the largest nonprofit health organization in the Midwest. Okay, just massive amounts of state funding. We train all their people how to go out and like place disabled people in jobs and all that stuff, like how to, sell business owners on that. I'm supposed to golf with their vice president of sales the last 6 weeks straight, and it's rained every single week.
Crazy, for
we
sure.
Cancel every single week, and we're supposed to golf tomorrow, and now we're talking about canceling tomorrow because it's supposed to rain tomorrow. So I'm like, good gosh, maybe we should just meet.
I had to go out to Arizona for golf, a couple weeks ago.
So. I know, something like that. We're going to have to go out to Arizona during this rainy May. Now, if you are brand new to our Facebook group, Sales Revolution, because I know that when we stream on StreamYard, we're going live in our Facebook group, Sales Revolution. We're going live on my personal Facebook, just my personal friends. And we're also going live on YouTube. Okay, so some of you are streaming in from YouTube. And I believe we're actually going live on IG right now, on Instagram, okay? So if you are brand new to these lives and you're like, who the heck is this dude coming up on my screen? I am the founder and chairman of an organization called Seventh Level. And we are a company that helps sales professionals just like you watching, okay? We help salespeople, coaches, sales executives, managers, leaders, entrepreneurs, and we help you by transforming the way you and your team sell by learning skilled techniques and questions that work with human behavior, not against it. Okay, that's a big difference in that. Those are called neuro-emotional persuasion questions with the right tonality. We have to teach you the right tone that puts your prospects at ease, eliminate sales pressure. Can you imagine that? And get your prospects to pull you in, to actually want to engage with you and to want to open up to you and actually persuade themselves. Can you imagine if you learned those skills, where you'd be at as a sales professional and income? Darren will fill us on that. Now, along the way, if you want to learn more details about how we can help you sell a lot more of your products and services, like we have for thousands of our clients in the last 2 years, just Google our names. You'll just see it. You'd be in the Facebook group. You see 5. Yesterday, we had 17 new testimonials come in just one Facebook group. 17 in one day. We're almost to 3,000 in the first 2 years. I know we're bragging, but All right, let's get to the good stuff. I don't want to bore everybody. Darren, how are you over there, man?
I'm good.
Okay. Let's get right into it. All right. So Darren, when people see these posts, so every week we go live with, like I said, a new client. Okay. Now, to even be on these lives, you have to get your sales up where you're making at least like 25 grand a month in commissions to even be on the live with us. Okay. Right. You've gone up to 30,000 plus a month in commissions, and you're even learning the skills to make more than that. And The funny thing is you're selling the same product you were 6 months ago. But a lot of people, when they see that, they're like, well, Darren must be just born with like special super talents. He was just born out of his mother's womb, special talents. He is a Colts fan, so he probably sells more because of that. He wears really cool glasses, like he gets up 3 a.m. to call his leads. He just works 24 hours a day. Or there must have been the wicked witch of Eastwick like zapped you with the selling spell, and now you just sell everybody. So let's take everybody back. First got into selling, I think, 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's
Let's
crazy.
start where you were at and how you got to where you're at now. Where did you start off in sales? What were you doing?
Okay, so I started off, outside sales, and I hated it. I just hated the face-to-face stuff, right? And so I actually got fired from a job. I was working with a high-end industrial valve manufacturer out of Calgary, Canada. And I got fired because I was outselling our vice president of sales. So you know how that works.
Yeah.
Answered an ad. I went to start working for Franklin Covey, selling their 7 Habits, What Matters Most, certification, real estate coaching, that sort of a thing. And at the time, it was just more of a, hey, I'm going to do this until I find something better.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And it took me about 4 months to really figure out how to talk to people on the phone. I tried quitting 4 times and they wouldn't let me quit. And I don't know why. So I just kept at it. I just kept, going through the script, listening to other guys that were, beating people up on the phone, high pressure tactics, and talking people into it, seeing how fast they can get a credit card, that sort of a thing. And I just thought that there might be just wasn't my personality.
Sure. And I think with a lot of people, it's not their personality to beat people up, to pressure them, to, force them to buy. So you sold that way. You eventually learned some other skills along the way. And you eventually, what do you sell now?
I sell actually real estate coaching. And then I have a second offer that I sell part-time. And that's more of an options trading program.
Okay. So you sell real estate education, kind of like Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So
kind of, yeah.
Similar like that. We train a lot of people in that space as well. So you sell real estate education, and that does what? It helps people like that want to start their own business where they can make more money, have more time. Is that really what it is?
Yeah, that's correct. People who maybe are already investing and want to do it on a higher level. So we work with those people. And then people who are brand new, and see what's going on with the economy and say, gosh, I really need to go out there and get some rentals, or I want to learn how to wholesale, or whatever.
Okay, so you're teaching them these advanced skills. And if they don't purchase your services, your training from the company you work for, what are the problems they might face?
Just trying to figure it out on their own, and understanding they've got to generate leads, understanding that they've got to learn how to talk to sellers, understanding they've got to learn how to bring the buyers to the table to be able to complete these transactions.
So if they don't have the skills, well, they fail, right? If they don't have the skill level, they fail, right? It's just the same thing in selling. If you don't learn the right skills, it doesn't matter how hard you work. You're still going to beat your head into the wall every day, hoping and praying it works out. I call that hopium. It's a drug that so many salespeople are on, where they just hope and pray that something they're going to say to the prospect is magically going to cause the prospect to just magically want to buy. And it's such a hard and unpredictable way to make a real income and grow yourself financially as a sales professional. Now, 5 or 6 months ago, how did you hear about, our training? How did you even hear about us?
This was really cool because I had already been in the group that we're doing the live in right now. And so I had just been seeing all of these success stories. Yeah. And then this dude, Matt Ryder, comes along. I have no idea who this Australian dude is. And then I just say, you know what? I wanted to take it to the next level. I'd never really invested in sales coaching before to help me out. So I thought this was a great time to take a look at that.
Yeah. And if any of you don't know who Matt Ryder is, Matt is the CEO of 7th Level. I'm just the chairman. I'm the boring guy that does the, some of the training, I guess. I'm that type of guy. Just Google my name. There's some good stuff on there, mainly good stuff, I think. But anyways, so Matt was one of my top students ever, one of my top clients that went from making about $20,000 a month in commissions to over $100,000 a month in commissions after I trained him the right way to sell, to communicate. So you were in the Facebook group probably around when we started it. I think we might have started it a month or two before that, right? I think we have 5,600 people in here now, or sales professionals. We might have had 1,000 then. And then you saw some training. What caused you to be like, you know what? I'm already making 12 grand a month, because a lot of salespeople, if they made 12 grand a month, would be like, man, I'm the king of the hill. I make so much money. I know everything about selling there ever was to know. Like, nobody's better than me. What caused you to like take down the ego and be like, hey, maybe I can learn more advanced skills to sell more?
I just realized that there were certain blind spots in my process that I needed to improve. Objections being one of them. Okay. Yeah. And we went over that in the inner circle the other night. And just the whole process to where it was a lot calmer. It just was less stressful. Yeah. And I saw these guys who were doing these, and it seemed like, hey, they're no different than I am, but they seem to be more at peace with what they do. And so
they put their pants on the same way every day. They brush their teeth as well. Sometimes they eat breakfast. They drive in a car. So they're really no different than you, but yet they're making 30, 40, 50,000 plus a month in commissions. And that's over like hundreds of different industries. It didn't really matter. So you saw a lot of social proof, which we have.
I did.
And then you jumped into the training. And I remember you telling me a story the other day, like the first couple months, I didn't really take this seriously.
Yeah. Well, what was really funny is that when I was actually in Utah for a family event, Matt got on the Zoom call with me, and he actually almost made me cry. Legit. Okay. Made me cry, you know.
Wow. How is that?
Yeah, he's like, oh, I've got to do this, right? And so I started to get going, and I didn't take it seriously for like the first 2 or 3 months. My sales went up a little bit because I used some of your closing questions that made a difference, but just not embracing the whole thing. And then you finally got after me and saying, look, dude, you've invested in your training. When are you going to start doing something with it?
You weren't getting on any of the advanced training calls with me. I'm like,
no, I was just booked solid. And then, with other appointments, but I just finally made a commitment to embrace it. And that's been the last 3 months. And as a result, we've seen sales go up.
Over those first 3 months where you just kind of used a little bit, you didn't use much, your income went up a couple grand a month or whatever. Yeah. How much money do you think that cost you in lost income?
I don't want to talk about it. Seriously, legit. Because it's probably cost me at least 100 grand, I'm guessing.
So you lost about 100,000 in commissions you would have made if you would have dove into the training. That's a pretty big lack of knowledge.
It was worth the investment for sure. So
there you go. All right. So you start paying attention 3 months ago. And let's talk about the connecting part, because I want to start breaking down the sales process and how we changed it for you and how we tied in NEPQ to what you sell. Now, if you're brand new and you're like, what the hell is NEPQ? That stands for Neuro-Emotional Persuasion Questioning. It's a methodology that I developed from my background in behavioral science and human psychology. And if you Google my name, took me from just a nobody salesperson as a college kid, broke, to eventually one of the top 50 highest paid salespeople on the planet selling anything. There's a big article by the Direct Selling Association. It's on Google at the first or second page. There's a reason why I did that. And I did that in 4 different industries that were completely different. 2 of them are B2C, 2 of them are B2B. The average earners in those industries where I was making almost $3 million a year in commissions, guess what they were averaging? About 50 grand a year. In commissions. I was making that a little bit more than that every week in commissions. Okay. It wasn't because I had really cool hair or I wore Hugo Boss shirts either. It was because I knew what questions to ask at the right time in the conversation that triggered the prospect to want to engage, to want to open up. Because realize when you first start talking to your prospects, most of your prospects you talk to, as you know, Darren, don't even know they really have a problem when you first talk to them.
Right.
Those are only the lay down sales. That's like 5 to 10% of your sales are just lay downs, right? 10% are never going to buy. 10% are always going to buy, but it's that 80% that most people miss. They're right in the middle. And depending on your questioning ability and how you use human behavior determines where that 80% falls. Do they either fall to your side or do they just stay in status quo and never buy and nothing ever happens? Okay. So there's a reason why that happens. So when we started teaching that to Matt and you and all these thousands of clients that are getting these type of results, crazy things happen. When we rewrote your sales structure, we tied NEPQ into what you sell specifically. And I looked up your industry. Do you know what the average earner in your industry makes on a yearly basis?
I do not.
$4,713 a month. That's not bad. That's $53,000 a year. So how the hell is Darren making now on pace to almost $400,000 a year, and he's calling the same amount of leads? There's nothing different, right? How is he doing that? It's his skill level, the questions that we have taught him how to ask that separates him from the average pack. So how did you used to start off a call? Like, how did you connect? Because you do inbound leads. They book on your calendar from an ad that your company runs. They book on your calendar. They're somewhat interested, maybe checking it out, maybe just curious, maybe what knows going on. How did you used to start at your calls in the old days?
Oh, in the old days, I would just say, hey, Jeremy, this is Darren with such and such. Looks like that you booked this call for us to talk. Tell me what's going on. And I would just shut up.
Okay.
And just thinking that magically they would give me everything that I needed to close the sale.
Yeah.
And I felt like in the very beginning, and this is one of the biggest changes that I've seen with what I'm doing, is I used to feel like I had to spend like the first 20 minutes on building rapport with these people.
Right.
Trying to get on
How's the weather? Who's your favorite football team?
Totally, yeah. And now it's just like, boom, we jam through the connecting stage and then we move on to the other stages and, works.
So now when you're connecting, how do you start out the call now? And how do they react to you now compared to how they used to?
Now when we set it up, because of the script that we put together, is I want to get a little bit of an idea of what their background is in investing. I want to get an idea of what they really want to do, and then just to see if we can actually help them.
Yeah. So you have the mentality that you're not quite sure you can even help. Yep. So when you start off the call, I'd have to look at your sales structure we've written out with you on the group training. Hey, John, it's just Darren with XYZ company. All right. So how are you doing today? Oh, I'm doing good. How are you doing, Darren? Just being the boring guy, just hanging out.
Yep.
When I taught you how to just say that, just being the boring guy, just hanging out. How do people react to that?
They're just like, okay. I mean, they kind of causes them to kind of think a little bit, and they'll make a comment here or there, and then we'll just keep on going.
Yeah, it takes out the sales pressure because they know it's a sales call. So when you make fun of yourself, when you downplay yourself, they do what? They come to
laugh. They go, oh, that's cool.
They're like, oh, he's what?
He's like a real guy,
It's like a pattern interrupt, right? He's like a real human being, right? So that's a first step. And then when we say, it looks like you booked on my calendar today about possibly getting some outside help with real estate investing. And then we change that where we talk about, now the first part of this call is really more for us to find out more about kind of, what you've done in the past as far as investing. And I would say really what you're looking for to see if we could actually help. Right. Now, I was just curious. Now, why do we want to say at the very end to see if we could actually help? What does that psychologically do to the prospect when you say that?
Well, it takes the pressure off of them in this conversation so we can really determine, hey, can I help you, or do you need to go someplace else for that?
Yeah. Yeah. Because when we say to see if we can actually help you, it causes the person to feel that you are there for them, not just to be there to make a sale, to make a commission. Correct. Okay. Yeah. And a lot of companies will teach you like, to see if this is a good fit for you. Don't say that because it's so overused, especially with what you sell in the high ticket space and like the insurance space and financial space. Like every salesperson's been taught how to say that. So when people hear that over and over and over, they view it as a tactic. Okay. Like the walls of resistance come up. So we have to relanguage and make the wording more neutral. Okay. Now we then want to go into your situation questions. And before you learned how to do that from what we trained you in our advanced training, what did you typically do at that point?
Okay. So before I would try to get an idea of what they did for work. I'd try to get an idea of what they've been doing with investing, and more because I was already trying to qualify them. Okay. I wanted to see if they actually had money that they were going to be worth my time to be on the phone with me.
Sure. Right. Yeah. And that's not bad, but how have we helped you change that a little bit?
Now I'm actually pulling that out of them. They volunteer that as opposed to me just kind of drilling it in, because they already know that's the drill that they're going to be going through. And so it's a whole lot easier for them to volunteer with me by the questions.
Yeah, because you're questioning in the way we've taught you how to bridge to the next question. And especially when we taught you how to change your tonality. Totally. And at certain points in the conversation, how we have you just verbal pause when there's an emotion we want to bring out of them, that triggers the brain subconsciously in your prospects to feel so curious that they want to open up to you. They want to engage with you. Okay. If you're just asking logical based consultative questions, as they're so called, I call those surface level questions, people don't open up very often because they feel like you're interrogating them like an FBI detective. So you have to learn, if you're going to ask a logical based question, then how to follow up with a question that pulls out their feelings or their emotional side, or you have to learn how to clarify and probe. That's NEPQ clarifying and NEPQ probing questions. Now, at the next stage, we taught you once we found out their current situation, because here's their current situation, here's what some people call it the current state. Now you know exactly where they're at now. And then how do we help you help them want to open up to you and tell you what their real problems were, and not just what their problems were, but what the root cause of the problem was, like what caused it, and then how was it affecting them? Like, what do we teach you in that?
I think with that, it's just having them open up and asking the questions as far as, maybe what they've been struggling with, finding out how are you getting leads for your business?
Yeah.
How are you creating the deal flow? It's almost like subconsciously you're creating that need of, or you're creating that thing within them to go, oh, wow, I'm doing this stuff that's not getting results. And so maybe I really need to listen to this guy.
Yeah, your questions are causing them to think deep about why their situation is what it is and why they haven't done anything about solving the problems that they didn't even realize they had 10 minutes before you got on the call with them, right? So their questions subconsciously trigger them to think, oh, wow, I thought I had this problem, but Darren's helped me identify not just one problem, but he's helped me identify 3 or 4 other problems I didn't even know I had. And when you're able to do that, instead of one little problem that they thought they had, and now through your questioning ability 15 minutes later, now they've basically found that, wow, I really have 5 other problems. What did they start to view you as at that point?
Well, then they start to trust you, because ultimately they know at that point that you're not just after their credit card. Yeah. You're actually out there to listen to them, to serve them, and to just get them to a point where they recognize where they need to go from there.
Well, at that point, they subconsciously and consciously at that point view you as an expert, and the trusted authority in what you do, because no other salesperson has actually even asked him any of those questions. With other salespeople, they just kind of push them to the side and commoditize them, right? You don't want to be commoditized, push you to the side, have them chase me. Like they just treat you like a little vermin that they're trying to get rid of. But with you, because of your questioning ability that we've taught you, it causes them to pull you in rather than try to push back at you, right? And now they have massive trust for you at that stage. Now, we've helped them identify their current situation and their problems. It starts to create this massive gap in their mind of where they are compared to where they really want to be. We call that their objective state. Then we go into what are called solution awareness questions, right? And that helps them basically tie in and really start to own that the problems that they just found out they had, right? And them wanting to do something about changing that to get where they want to go. And when we taught you solution awareness questions, how did people react to those?
I've had some people who have just jumped off the call with me because, again, they want to continue down the path that they're going into. But I think it really allowed them to open up even more and to really explain to me, going in a little deeper, because instead of just staying on the surface, we're diving in 3, 4, 5 levels deep. Yeah. And really helping them create their own solution.
Yeah, because when you stay surface level with your questions, if you're just still asking your consultative questions that you've learned from spin selling and your other courses, which those were good back in the 70s and 80s.
Right.
But the consumer is completely different. This is 2021. With the power of the internet and social media, we live in a completely different landscape than we did 20, even 10 years ago, really. Okay. So because of you going deeper, you're not just finding out their why. Because every salesperson that's halfway decent can find out a prospect's why.
Right.
But what I taught you how to do is find out through your question ability what's behind the why.
Right.
So everybody see the difference. It's not just the why. That doesn't move people to act. How many people say, I want to lose weight, that are diabetic and 400 pounds, and you find out their why? You're their relative. You find out why they want to lose weight, but then they never do anything about it. It's because you couldn't help them find out what was behind the why, and they never persuaded themselves to do something about it internally. That's the difference. So once you learned how to do that, people started opening up to you. And what started happening to your income?
It kind of went up.
Okay.
Yeah.
It went from 12, then I think like to 20, then to 25. Then I think last month you were over 30. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, you're still in the Inner Circle program. I think you're possibly getting into our legacy where you're going to be with us for the whole year. Where do you really want your income to go?
Well, the next step is to hit the 50 range.
Yeah.
And then
I have people in your space that are there already.
Yeah. And then I want to go beyond and get to over 6 figures a month.
Yeah. And I have people there in the high ticket space that do that. A lot of spaces, insurance, financial. I even have car sales people that make almost $1 million a year at this point. Real estate agents for sure. A lot of network marketing. It's kind of all over. Luxury boats, everything you can think of that's sold. SaaS, cybersecurity, everything, B2B, it doesn't matter. So you realize, so you've only been here 3-4 months, your income's gone to 30. But what I love about you is you're like, man, I still don't know how to do this. And I'm not very good with this objection. And as we help you learn how to do that, what are you starting to notice each week is happening?
It's more enrollments. But more importantly, I feel more at peace.
What do you mean by that?
With what I'm doing. I don't stress myself out because I'm chasing commissions.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that by going through this process, now I stick to my process.
Yeah.
You taught me, and that I'm in the process of learning more. Yeah. And that's just going to allow me to serve more and to just show up and help more people. So
now, when we taught you how to, instead of when they throw out an objection or a concern, we taught you how to ask certain questions in your sales process to prevent a lot of the objections from happening. Compared to where you used to be, how down are your objections at the end compared to they used to? What'd you say percentage-wise?
I would say they're down by at least 50%.
Okay, so you're getting 50% less objections.
Correct.
Now, is it easier to sell to people when you don't get any objections, or is it easier to sell when you get tons of objections?
Well, it's a whole lot easier when you're not getting any objections. But what's more important is how to handle those throughout so that at the end it's minimized.
Yeah. And if they do have a concern at the end, we've taught you how to ask certain questions, right? How to clarify what the objection means, because you don't know what they mean by them just saying something. You can't assume you understand just because another prospect right before said the same thing. Could be completely different, something different for them. Then we're teaching you how to discuss that as a friend working with a friend. Remember, selling is collaborative, not adversarial. It's not you against the prospect trying to win them over to make money. It's you collaborating with them to help them find and solve their problems. And when you do that, you make a lot of money.
Which is how I used to sell. I used to be very in your face. When I get an objection, I would just jump all over them with it. And now it's a lot calmer.
Yeah. And they open up to you, right?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
You're basically trying to push them into it. They just close down, right? It's like you're banging your head against the wall, like trying to rebuff them. It makes no sense, right? It's old school selling. Now, so how do your prospects react to you now when you take them through that clarifying, discussing, diffusing process with their objections? What are you noticing is different?
That they're a lot more open in having that discussion, whether it's financial, whether it's time, whether it's spouse related, whatever the case is. They know that I'm not jumping on them because of the objection that they just gave me. We can continue with the conversation.
Yeah, because it's almost like this question, which is more risky? You doing nothing, staying in status quo, nothing ever changes, or you going out and getting the funding to learn the right advanced skills to be able to go full-time in real estate so you can make more money? Which is more risky?
Right. Staying where they're at.
See, and people say, well, staying where I'm at. Well, do you want to change that? It's just like in sales training. It's the same question we ask salespeople and companies. Which is more risky? You doing nothing, selling the exact same way you are now, using the same questions you are now, saying the same thing you are now, making the same amount of income you are now, like just staying in status quo? Or is it more risky to go out and get the funding together to get into the advanced training, learn the skills that work with human behavior so you sell more and make more money for your family? Which is more risky?
Right.
It's just a no-brainer, right? It just makes no sense, right? Do you want to stay in status quo and nothing ever changes and your problems stay the same? Or do you want to actually solve that and actually learn the right skills to sell a lot more so you can make more money for your family? And most importantly, you help your prospects do what? Solve their problems.
Change their lives.
Change their lives, change their situations. It doesn't matter if you sell to corporations all the way down to individuals. If you don't have the right skill sets, the right questions to ask at the right time with the right tonality, and your prospects are not buying from you, you're actually doing them a disservice because they're staying in status quo and nothing ever changes for them.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Now, how did you used to close at the very end?
It was a fair amount of beating them up is what it was. So,
and what happened? How did you beat them up? What was you saying?
I can't believe you don't want to do this, that sort of a thing, and just make them feel guilty for telling me no. And now it's so much calmer. It's kind of what I've been taught. It's a whole lot easier.
How do people react to you now when we've taught you how to ask commitment questions?
They actually follow through with the commitments.
Yeah.
And they don't think that I'm giving them a line. They actually tell me what they're feeling at that particular point.
Yeah.
And that's why they're going in like this.
Yeah. And that increases your income and solves their problems, right? Well, Darren, thanks for being on here. Any last words of advice that you have for anybody listening to you today?
First of all, I wanted to share with you, my son is actually in your group. So nothing has made me happier to see that he's kind of going down the same road of what I'm doing. So that's really cool. But kind of in parting shot, you know what? If you're on the fence of whether I should work with Jeremy or not, you know what? Do it. It might be a little bit uncomfortable for you at the very beginning to go through this and change and to make the investment, but it's going to be so much worth it. And it's going to be so worth it down the road because you're just going to see that increase over time. But if you do it, jump into it from the very get-go. Don't put it off for 2 or 3 months.
Where would you be at financially if you'd not went out and got funding for the training?
Same place, you know? I mean, I think I'd still be doing maybe 12, 15, maybe 20, but not having a more clear process to do that with a lot of more peace.
So because of the training, you're only making an extra $18,000 a month in commission.
It's no big deal.
That's only about $220,000 more per year. That's not bad.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I always tell people at events? So we do a lot of events, right? We're starting to do more live events here in the fall with all the COVID stuff and everything being over now. But I was doing the keynote a couple weeks ago for the New York City Real Estate Convention. It's the largest real estate convention in the country. They have it every May in New York City. Now, New York was not really open. It's not even open now to do live events. So it was all virtual. Like I did it here in my office in Springfield. And at the very end of it, I said, look, I want everybody on here to do this exercise. And I want to ask you, what is your biggest expense in your life? And I would see people on comments because it's all virtual. It's weird. You know, on stage, you talk to people, right? But it's all virtual. And they were like, oh, my mortgage is my biggest expense. Or man, I've got kids going to college. That's my biggest expense. Or man, my wife is so expensive. She buys all these purses. Or my husband likes to buy all these cars. You know, the car payments are expensive. And I'm like, yeah, that's all expensive. Or some people say taxes are smooth. Like, yeah, that's really probably your second biggest expense is your taxes. What's your number one expense you have in life as a salesperson? Nobody came up with it. And most people don't. And I said, write this down. Your biggest expense in life is your lack of knowledge of learning the right skills as a sales professional that work with human behavior for you to start making $250,000 to $300,000 to $350,000 plus a year in commissions. Your biggest expense in life is your lack of knowledge of having the right skills to be able to do that. And then I said, take down a piece of paper and I want you to write down on that piece of paper how much money you made last year. You know, if you made 100 grand last year, write it down. If you made 30 grand last year, write it down. If you made 70, write it down. If you made 50, if you made 250, write that down. Now, above that, because I think every salesperson wants to make at least 250 to 300,000 a year, right? That's at least the goal, right? Let's say it's 300,000, because in New York, you got to make more money. You can't live off 200. You got to make at least 300. I said, right above that, what you made last year, and let's say you're an above average salesperson, you made 80 grand, okay? Right above that, write 300,000. So 300,000 is what you want to make. Okay. Right down below that, what you made last year. Let's say it's 80 grand. When you subtract 300 from, or 80 from 300, what does that leave over? 220. I was like, that's your biggest expense right there. Circle 220. That's your biggest expense. That's what you paid life last year because you don't have the right skills and knowledge as a sales professional to be able to make $300,000 a year in commissions. So the question you all have to ask yourself is, how much more are you willing to keep paying life another $200,000 every single year after year after year, because you still won't learn the right skills that work with human behavior to make at least $300,000 a year? And you know what everybody did? Jaws dropped. That's the difference. Your biggest expense in life is your lack of knowledge of learning the right skills to be able to make that income. Once you learn those skills like Darren has, well, what becomes possible?
Right. Increase
everything becomes possible. All right. I want to thank everybody to be on here. Darren, you're a trooper, dude.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here, Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're gonna help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.